So, who had the Cavs at 3-1 after 4 games? Because I certainly didn't. Sexton and Garland have been awesome, man. I mean, Sexton's averaging 25 points right now. The main thing that Sexton's been doing is not going too fast. In fact, there were specific plays in the Pistons overtime game where he's in transition, and instead of just going 100 miles an hour, he surveys the floor for a moment, then he has another burst for a layup, and that Pistons game was really gutsy by Cleveland because they were in positions to lose many times in that game, and they had to go on a couple mini comebacks, and we're going to talk about Drummond and Okoro and Kevin Love, who's now hurt for a little bit, but, I mean, Sexton and Garland, my goodness. Sexton, I mean, the assist numbers are not jumping up or anything, but he suddenly looks way more like a guy who can actually have offense run through him, and he's not going to get tunnel vision. He's had a few nice passes, but the main thing he's been doing is he's not been dribbling into traffic. He has been surveying the floor well enough, and I mean, he was already good enough to beat guys off the dribble and that sort of thing. It's just he wasn't the best at having a plan once he did that initial motion, whereas now, and some of this is because the floor is a little better spaced out. I will give them that too. But Sexton's just doing a good job of just making the right decision, and his efficiency has been insane so far. He's also pretty relentless attacking the basket, 6 free throws a game at the moment. And I do want to say there have been some interesting, like Andre Drummond, Larry Nance, Kevin Love handoff plays for this team. So Drummond right now is averaging 3.5 assists. Nance is averaging 4.5. Kevin Love 2.5. And just simply having that guy come out to the perimeter and then having Sexton and Garland or whoever just wrap around and get the handoff and then go do something off of that, it is working. There was even a great play against the Pistons where I think it might have been Sexton, it might have been Garland, but they threw it to the guy at the top of the key. It was one of the big guys, and then they immediately just cut to the basket, and I think it was Drummond just gave him a great pass underneath the basket, and it was one of the ceiling baskets of the game. It was in the overtime. And it was just like, whoa, real basketball plays from Cleveland. The coach is J.B. Bickerstaff, right? Well, so far, the offense looks good. We got to give credit to Andre Drummond, who is currently averaging 20 and 15. I mean, look, Drummond has been talked about many times and not always in the most positive light, by me included. And we'll see what ends up happening with his contract, but he's certainly better than what Tristan Thompson was giving them for a while. I mean, I've mentioned the handoff plays, it's the putbacks, he's shooting 7 free throws a game, and just the general physicality around the basket, rolling to the rim, just your basic Andre Drummond things. It's doing a lot for this team right now, there's no question about it. Now, it should be said, Drummond was also very beneficial because Embiid did not play in that Sixers game, and we have seen that when those two face each other, Embiid usually makes Drummond look like a high schooler, so he might have got a lucky break on that one. But still, he's been good. If we could talk about Garland, I mean, the three-point shooting is real. He's shooting 46% on 6 a game, which I don't think that's going to hold up, but he does look very comfortable shooting these pull-up threes out of screens. When bigs are not stepping up to the screen on him, he's taking them right away. And, you know, I mean, if he's got that shot, then it really opens up a lot of his game. Similar to Sexton, Garland looks way more under control as well. I mean, that was his biggest problem in his rookie season. It was just like, he just didn't know what he was doing. Like, you could tell he was talented. I mean, if you put up 12 points and 4 assists in your rookie year, clearly you could do at least something. But over-dribbling, not seeing the open guy, he just didn't know what he was doing. And now, suddenly, he knows what he's doing. And again, part of it is because the floor is better spaced and he's got some better passing bigs. But a lot of this, you just got to give it to Garland. He has clearly gotten a lot better as a player and he's gotten a lot smarter. Now, they have been pretty lucky. I don't want to say lucky, but the threes have been going in at a very high rate. I mean, Chetty's making 41% on 6 a game. JaVale's even made some. Larry Nance has been knocking him down. Garland and Sexton have been making them. So we'll see if some of that tails off a little bit. But certainly a great start. And, I mean, if you want to be cynical, you could say, well, the teams they've beaten have not exactly been amazing. I mean, it's the Hornets, the Pistons, and then the Sixers without Embiid, and then they lost to the Knicks. But I would say from what the Cavs were a year ago, anything that's a good sign should be celebrated. Now, if we're going to get to their defense, the first thing I noticed is that they've been using some drop coverage. It was pretty effective against the Pistons. Drummond would drop on some Derrick Rose type things, and he would get him to take a mid-ranger that Cleveland felt pretty good about. JaVale is fine for 16 minutes a game, and I think that's a lot of what this is. It's Drummond, JaVale, some Larry Nance at small ball center. It's a pretty solid center rotation, and that can go a long way. I mean, they're definitely not going to end up second in defense by the time the year's over. But if you just have a set of guys who are competent enough and can box out well and you don't do anything stupid, yeah, you might be second in defense after 4 games. And if you dove into the advanced stats, you might even be able to see some things that suggest the Cavs will fall back down to earth kind of quickly here. For one, they are 20th in defensive rebound percentage, which is more or less middle of the pack, but it's not above average right now. At the same time, you'd think with Drummond, perhaps, that could get a little bit better. Turnovers-wise, they're also about 19th, 20th in the league. And they are middle of the pack in terms of fouls per game. So they're not great at any of the boring fundamentals defensively. They're not horrible at any of them either, so we'll see how that plays out over the season. But if we're going to talk about their defense, besides saying, the center things I've already said, I got to talk about Isaac Okoro. So I have not watched every minute of the Cavs. Not even close. So, a Cleveland watcher will have a better take than me, but I have watched a bit. And I've been watching Isaac Okoro as much as I can on my phone on websites that may or may not be technically official. But I have legit not seen Isaac Okoro make a single mistake on defense yet. Every rotation he does correctly. He stays in front of his guy. He played Gordon Hayward very well multiple times against the Hornets. Yeah, Hayward still scored on him a few times, but he still played him really well. He had this one contest on Derrick Rose late in the Pistons game. It was beautiful. It was like, my goodness, this guy looks like he's been in the league for 7 years already. There was another contest in the Pistons game on Jeremy Grant where Okoro closed out on him, and Grant made the shot. It was a hell of a shot given the contest. But from where Okoro started and how close he ended up to Jeremy Grant by the end of it, it's like, wow. I mean, he jumped with him at the perfect time and everything. Like, I've even seen it on Twitter a little bit already. I've seen people being like, well, Okoro played this many minutes and he only had this many points. And sure, that is going to be a thing throughout his career. We'll see what he can do on offense. We'll see if the three-pointer gets there. He's a better finisher right now, all that stuff. Okoro, to me, is already making a positive impact, and I think that's why he's playing so many minutes. Now, the advanced stats don't like his defense as much because he has spent quite a few possessions just kind of chilling on the wing, not really doing anything, and he doesn't have a lot of steals or a lot of blocks, but I'm telling you, Okoro, he's what he was supposed to be on defense. And as far as Larry Nance and Cedi Osman, they continue to be 2 guys who I really want the Celtics to trade for. Probably not going to happen now. Anyway, speaking of this roster some more, I think the big question is the Drummond contract. And look, we got a whole season to go, and even with this start, I don't think this team's going to make the playoffs. So, there's still going to be some things that they got to think about. And I mean, look, if they could agree to a deal with Drummond that's not too crazy, then I wouldn't call it insane to keep him. But my fear is that they're going to give him, 20-something million for 3 years, and it's, $60 million total. And even if there's a team option on the last year, that's still kind of rough in the moment. I think the right move with Drummond may end up being trying to move him because his stock is a little higher right now. Now, we'll have to see. I mean, he was moved for so little from the Pistons that maybe GMs are just that low on the guy, mainly because of his contract. I don't think anybody thinks he's a bad player. And perhaps you could get something, but at the same time, it is $28 million. I mean, it isn't expiring, so that's good. So, I mean, maybe they could use it to get an actual player. Maybe They could use it to get some draft picks, but they probably have to take on some multi-year contracts as well. Maybe they just want Andre Drummond and that's it. I don't know. I still think the best route for this team is to try to get in the lottery again. But you can still establish a good culture and you can be going in the right direction while still not being so good. And I guess there's a perfect scenario in which the Cavs can take their cap space, of which they could have quite a bit, assuming they don't commit to any big contract moving forward. You sign somebody. Might have to be a little bit of an overpay, but you sign somebody. You draft somebody who ends up being good. And then you just kind of roll from there. The other thing to think about is a Kevin Love trade. I just don't think it's there. I mean, he already got hurt again this season. And it's still 2 years left in the deal after this season. I just think it's too much. Maybe on the last year of that contract you'll be able to trade him, but I don't think so right now. But yeah, man, through 4 games, the Cavs look exciting. And sure, I don't know if anybody's projecting them to suddenly be like a mid-tier playoff team in the East or anything, but it's like there's something actually going on here now, as opposed to a team that didn't have much going for it. So, that's cool. If it's a 72-game season, how many games should this team strive for? Can they get to 36 wins? I would say no, but is a goal for them like 30 wins? I mean, the goal for them at this point is win the frickin' finals, but realistically, yeah, like 30 wins, maybe. I'll tell you this, man. The Cavaliers do not have LeBron James, and yet they're still fun. Which, right then and there, well done.